Hey, everyone. Another video, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe, and already hit the like button right now at the start, because it helps a lot. Well, I'm going to tell you about something that happened. Last month, I was making another visit to the barbershop near my place. There was already a young guy there, must be around 19, 20 years old. The guy has cut my hair about half a dozen times. And so, I'm not the talkative customer, you know. I chat very little. But there was another talkative customer next to him, so the conversation flowed. People started talking about different cities, states, right? The path that each one has taken in life. And then the guy who was cutting my hair told a very interesting story. The kid was from another state, right? He took a barber course, I don't know where he must have done it, but this was while he was still living at his parents' house. He got a job and moved out of his parents' house. And it wasn't a job directly related to that, it was just one of the skills he acquired in his life. Just a reminder, a young guy, 17, 18 years old, something like that. He himself said that in moments of financial difficulty, he even cut his friend's hair for 10, 15 pila bucks and so on. This was while he was still in the same city, his parents' city, but already out of their house. And so, he was from another state, right? So, just think, a young guy, less than 20 years old, the guy moved out of his parents' house. Then, he left the state where he lived to go live far from his family. He was saying that he took the course out of the blue, started working with it, and liked it. He said that today he's doing very well, on his own, with his own place. And making money that is more than what he needs to live on. So, he manages to pay his bills, have some leisure, and still save something. And mind you, he's a guy who took a barber course, get it? And so, emphasizing this point, the guy is satisfied with his life, and now it's that thing, the world belongs to him, you know. And then, in the discussion, I already gave that instruction based on experience, right? Since I have more than a decade on this guy. And I said, man, this is good because, in my opinion, every man has to have this experience of leaving his parents' house and going to live alone, or going to live with friends. Why? Because, look, when he's at his parents' house, he's in an environment where he has to keep giving account to his father, to his mother. But he also has to keep giving validation to his mother, the same way his father is giving validation to his mother. And then I said that the biggest trap, in those words, you know, in those words that I'm speaking here on the channel, the biggest trap that many men fall into, the biggest mistake that many men make, is this. He becomes an adult, starts to become self-sufficient, to support himself. And, instead of living alone or with friends, to try to discover himself and identify what he considers important in his life, what his values are, what his goals will be. He ends up falling into the trap of living with a girlfriend, living with a fiancé. So, look, he never has that transition to become an independent man, to become a self-sufficient man. Look, before, he lived at his parents' house, he was a mommy's boy, you know, mommy's little son. And then he becomes an adult, quotation marks, but he becomes the boy or the gadao simp cuck of the girlfriend wife. In short, he had no transition at all. He just swapped masters. He lived in an environment where he gave validation to his mother and gave account to her. And then he's simply going to another environment, where he's giving validation and giving account to the girlfriend or the wife. And then, right after, falling into those traps, right, of common law marriage and fatherhood, which is basically just risk and responsibility, without any authority or benefit. And then I shared very clearly, this experience, that, look, it's the best thing the guy has to do. The moment a man becomes independent, he has to take some time to be alone, just dedicating himself to himself. To then, later, decide what he's going to do with his life. The discussion sort of ended there, you know. There was no need to bring up a bunch of red pill stuff or anything like that. But it's funny, because I already had this kind of conversation more than a decade ago, with some college and internship colleagues and so on. This was long before I knew about MGTOW, red pill, anything like that. It was the era of purple pills out, big purple pill itself. Maybe even blue pill. Even back then, this kind of comparison existed. Between the guy who is in his early 20s and he's working, doing college, an internship, but he is still an independent man. He is deciding what he wants to do with his life and also enjoying life. And then I remember discussing with a friend about a coworker of his, who, look at the trap, he should have been at most 25 years old, was married, and he was already on his second child. Mind you. Okay, early girlfriend, either he slipped up, or she slipped up. And this friend of mine told me, citing this guy, saying that you could see that the guy had an inner desperation. He would get very pissed off sometimes, or it seemed like he was very pissed off at his wife and kids, because the wife and kids had stolen his opportunities, in a way. Stolen his future, right? taking away the possibilities of him being who he could have been, instead of who he is today. Can you understand? It's basically that argument that wives and girlfriends are kind of dream destroyers. That what's important to the man, what the man aspired to for his life, his dreams and goals, become secondary, or even tertiary, because now his priority has to be solely his wife and children. And you could see the guilt in this guy. The internal feeling of guilt he had, because, while he loved his wife, loved his children, cared about them, had all that instinctive part of wanting to take care of them, provide for them. He also noticed that his life had been stolen. It doesn't matter if he was the one who self-sabotaged, he who stole his own life, or let's even try to consider the possibility that maybe his current wife kind of played him, pulled a trick, you know. That old miraculous baby trick, ha ha ha, the pill didn't work. So, note the difference in these two characters I'm mentioning in this video. On one hand, you have two guys who are between 20 and 25 years old, quite young by current standards. And then you have one who sought his independence. And, even in a position, a job, a specialization that is not renowned, right? Barber, etc. He took the initiative to move out, have a place of his own, get a job, have his independence, his self-sufficiency. And have this opportunity not only to enjoy life, to learn to live alone, learn to become independent, but to have that freedom, without rush, to be able to define what he wants for his life, plan, and try to achieve his goals, his dreams. On the other hand, you have a guy who probably followed the path I mentioned earlier. The guy left his mom and dad's house, immediately went to live with a girlfriend, became a family man, a husband, a father. And now the guy has no perspective in his life. Get it? He doesn't see a future. He's the Gato simp who, simply, was born in a fenced-in area, on a farm. And then, when that opportunity arose, when he became a young adult, look, now the fence gate is open. You can go out, you can try to discover the world. What did he do? He went there, closed the gate, and stayed inside the fence. Because, who knows, maybe for some reason, at that moment, the enclosure seemed good to him. But then, with time, comes that realization, man, I messed up, you know. I created my own prison. I could be free, trying to discover the world, you know. With a world of possibilities for my future. But no, now I'm trapped. And, as I've already mentioned here on the channel, there's that video about the man who becomes conscious after marriage. In this case, maybe this guy can reconquer the freedom he never reached, right? So it wouldn't be a reconquest. But, due to the fact that he got married and had children, this freedom that he can conquer will be partial. And, for sure, he'll have to pay the price, because there's no way you can abandon a wife, and a marriage without paying the price and running a very high risk of also losing the children. Well, everyone, that was the video, and here's this reflection, and the most important thing, embrace solitude, because in this life, it's just you for yourself. Get my ebook, Antifragile, for a symbolic price of just $15. It's an ebook that addresses human nature, the profane feminine human, offers a critical view of social dynamics and relationships, revealing the uncomfortable side that few can perceive. And, of course, I can't put the content here on YouTube, because the channel would be easily banned. If you are interested, link in the QR code. See you in the next video. Onward, warriors.